was a young samurai standing alone before his first battle. The morning was cold, the air was still, and in front of him the world felt strangely quiet. No cheering, no glory, no heroic music, only the sound of his own breathing. He could feel the weight of the sword at his side, but the sword was not the heaviest thing he carried. The heaviest thing was the code that told him how to stand, how to obey, how to fight, how to lose, and how to face death without letting fear choose for him. His hands were steady, but inside he was not empty. He was afraid. And that is where the real story begins. Not with a sword, not with armor, not with battle, but with fear and what a human being does. With blades, men trained to fight. But behind the armor, there was another world, a world of silence, discipline, ritual, loyalty, pressure, and control. The samurai did not begin as mythical figures. They began as servants of power. In early Japan, land meant survival. Powerful families needed protection. They needed men who could ride, shoot, fight, guard, and obey. Over time, these warriors became more than soldiers. They became a class, a culture, a symbol. They were trained to move with precision, to speak with restraint, to bow with meaning, to enter a room as if every small movement revealed the person inside. Because, for the samurai, discipline was not something used only in war. Discipline was life itself. How you held your body, how you controlled your voice, how you treated your weapon, how you waited, how you endured, how you hid fear without pretending it did not exist. A samurai was not expected to have no fear. He was expected to be ruled by something stronger than fear. Duty, honor, name, and the code. That code would later be known as Bushido, the way of the warrior. But Bushido was not simply a list of rules. It was an idea about how a person should live when life is uncertain and death is close. Loyalty mattered, courage mattered, respect mattered, self-control mattered. But above all, a samurai was expected to place duty above comfort, above desire, above fear. That sounds beautiful from a distance, but inside a human life, it was heavy. Imagine being told that your name matters more than your pain, that your duty matters more than your hesitation, that your honor matters more than your survival. For the young samurai standing before battle, this was no longer philosophy. It was real. He could feel his heart moving fast. He could feel the body trying to protect itself. Run, hide, live. But the code whispered something. The sword of the samurai was more than a weapon. It was a mirror of the warrior's discipline, a mirror of his status, a mirror of the life he was expected to live. To carry a sword was to carry responsibility. The blade had to be cared for, the body had to be trained, the mind had to be sharpened. But the most dangerous enemy was not always standing outside. Sometimes the enemy was inside. Anger, pride, impatience, panic. A warrior who could not control himself could not be trusted to control a sword. That is why training was repetition, again and again and again. The same movement, the same breath, the same silence. Until the body learned what the mind might forget. In modern life, we often think strength is noise, confidence, speed, victory. But the samurai understood a quieter kind of strength. The strength to wait, the strength to remain still, the strength to not answer anger. But the world of the samurai was not only beautiful. It was not only honor, poetry, and shining steel. It was also harsh, violent, unequal, and unforgiving. This is important because if we only romanticize the samurai, we miss the truth. The same code that created courage could also create cruelty. The same loyalty that gave life meaning could demand obedience even when the order was wrong. The same honor that gave a man dignity could make failure feel unbearable. A samurai could become strong inside the code, but he could also become trapped by it. And this is where the story becomes human. Because every powerful idea has two sides. Discipline can build you, but it can also harden you. Loyalty can guide you, but it can also blind you. Honor can lift you, but it can also crush you. The young samurai was taught to become steel, but human beings are not steel. They remember, they doubt, they fear, they love, they break. And sometimes the hardest question is not how to become strong. The hardest question is how to become strong without losing your humanity. For centuries, the samurai had a place. Their world made sense. There were lords, there were clans, there were duties, there were enemies, there were rules. A samurai knew where he stood. But no world stays still forever. Ships arrived, trade expanded, technology advanced, guns became stronger, modern armies became faster, factories changed economies, governments changed power. And slowly, the age of the sword began to fade. This was not only a military change, it was an identity crisis. Imagine being born into a world where your name, your clothes, your weapon, your duty, and your purpose are all connected. Then imagine that world beginning to disappear. What happens to a warrior when the battlefield no longer needs him? What happens to honor when society changes its language? What happens to a code when the future stops asking for it? For many samurai, modernization did not feel like progress. It felt like erasure. The future was And yet, the samurai did not truly disappear. Their political power faded. Their social role changed. Their swords became history. But the idea remained. In books, in films, in martial arts, in business culture, in the way people still speak about honor, focus, discipline, and self-mastery. Why? Why does a warrior class from another time still speak to the modern world? Maybe because modern people are also searching for a code. Not the same code, not a code of violence, not a code of blind obedience, but something that gives structure to a chaotic life. Today, we do not stand in armor before a battlefield, but we still face pressure, distraction, fear, anger, failure, temptation, the quiet desire to give up. We fight battles inside offices, inside homes, inside our own minds. We fight to stay. The last code of the samurai was never only about death. It was about life under pressure, how to stand when fear is present, how to act when comfort is calling, how to carry responsibility without collapsing beneath it. But we should not worship the past. The samurai were not perfect. Their world was not perfect. Their code was not perfect. It could inspire courage, but it could also demand silence where compassion was needed. So maybe the lesson is not to become like the samurai. Maybe the lesson is to take the question seriously. What does honor mean without cruelty? What does discipline mean without losing softness? What does strength mean without pride? What does courage mean when no one is watching? The young samurai standing before battle was not only facing an enemy, he was facing himself. And that is why the story remains. Because every human life eventually reaches a moment when no one else can choose for you. A moment where fear speaks, comfort speaks, pride speaks, anger speaks. And somewhere beneath all of it, a quieter voice asks, "Who are you?" Not when life is easy, not when people praise you, not when everything is safe, but here, in the pressure, in the silence, in the moment before action. That is where a person's code is revealed. Maybe the samurai were not only warriors. Maybe they were a symbol of a hidden code, the code between fear and choice. And maybe the last code of the samurai was not written on paper. It was written in that quiet space between fear and choice.